And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Bookish Moment. I'm Sarah Burr.
And I am JC Kenney. And Sarah, we have a super fabulous guest today joining us this afternoon. So I think it's time to get bookish. But first, you have a little message for us all.
Yes, I do have a friendly PSA for our viewers who are in the United States of America. If you aren't aware, today is National Voter Registration Day. It's the perfect time to visit either your state website or you can head to iwillvote.com. I'll put that link in our chat for today. Check your voter registration, check your status. You can register to vote if you're not already registered, and make sure that you are prepared for voting in our election this coming November. So now that we have done our civic duty to the world, we are super excited to have a fabulous guest with us this afternoon. Elizabeth Mitchell, welcome so much to our show. We can't wait to talk with you. You have a fascinating career, fascinating books. There's so much that we can dive into. This next 30 minutes are going to go by so quickly.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
We're before we dive into your work and your writing, for those of our viewers who may not be familiar with you, do you mind just taking a few moments to introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Elizabeth. I write under Elle, and well, in about a month, I will start writing under Buffy as well, which has been a nickname of mine for a very long time. I write suspense, dark fiction, speculative fiction, general fiction, essays, kind of you name it, except romance. Well, sweet romance. I have written one romance. I keep forgetting that. I'm also an artist, and I like all mediums there too. I don't really like to stay in one lane. I get bored really easily. I am going to blame ADHD, but I think it's just lots of creativity bubbling over.
Yes, we'll go with that.
Yes, see, that's good. I mean, there's ADHD too, that's for sure. I started writing very late. For most people, you know, they say they started writing when they were a kid. I kind of bounced in and out of it, but I was a special effects makeup artist for 6 years. That was going to be my career, but I am disabled. So I had to step away from that because it was very physically demanding. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, I would write scripts, but I'm bad at writing scripts, it turns out. So it ended up just turning into a novel. Mm-hmm. And here we are, years later, just writing novels and short stories and flash fictions. And I just can't seem to stop.
That is incredible. The breadth of genres that you're able to span. I personally, I've loved writing for as long as I can remember, but I could never get to the end for the longest time, no matter what I was trying to write, until I started writing mysteries. And so I was like, okay, this must be the genre that I can do. Like, this must be my thing. But to be able to, like, just to put on these different caps and go into these different genres, which, you know, require knowing the tropes and, you know, what readers are expecting out of it. It must be such it's a laborious experience.
It's funny. I think that's probably why I can do it, is I absolutely do not think of tropes. Mm-hmm. And no offense, readers, I also don't think about you. Not until the end. I do eventually, but my first draft is just the story, mm-hmm. whatever the story is. I vomit it out, and in whatever order it comes out of my head, which is sometimes very disjointed and sometimes very linear, which, you know, is not always a good thing either. So it's point A to point B, whatever was in my head, onto the page. And then my edit, I go back and I say, oh, who would like to read this other than me? And that's when I take into consideration, the expectations of the genre. But honestly, I call her my manuscript whisperer. I ask her, what genre is this, a lot, because I actually don't know. That's why I say I write dark fiction, because I never know, is this horror? Is this just general fiction with a dark slant? Where's the line? I mean, I can only tell when I was like, oh, this is clearly a romance book. This is clearly a mystery, or speculative fiction is also obvious. But most of the other things, I write a lot of cross-genre things. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard to put things in a box. But to me, story is first and foremost. So whatever genre that falls into is, where it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'd like to pick up on that just for a moment, because I think that's something really, really powerful and important for folks to hear. In that I think we as writers, especially those of us who people think of writing in kind of traditional genres like Sarah and I do, that, it's easy to say, well, we write for our fans, or we write for a certain audience. But at the end of the day, we really all, as authors, need to write stories that make us happy, because otherwise our readers, who are wonderful folks, are going to be able to, they'll pick that up. That if we aren't writing things that make us happy. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk about that a little bit more, because it's so great to hear somebody express it so much more eloquently than I am doing right now.
Oh, that's very sweet. Actually, it's one of the things I teach. So I teach a couple different aspects of writing. And one of the things is, especially when it comes to writing different perspectives, which I think is really where it shines the most, when writing multiple perspectives, or choosing who the story comes from, or where the story starts and ends, is where are you having fun? Because like you said, the reader's gonna tell if you're slogging through and you're just putting words on the page. Do you not think that is going to be how it feels? This conversation happened. Cool. That's like telling someone a long-winded story that you went to Target and you walked down the aisle and you looked at things. No one wants to read that, because no one wanted to listen to it while you were at dinner either. So you kind of want to get to the fun part. And while you're sitting there like typing away furiously because action's happening, or like really intense conversation is happening and things are popping on the page and your brain is on fire and you can't type fast enough, that is where like the heart of the story is. Whatever story it is, that's where the beautiful prose come out, or the tight prose. It doesn't have to be beautiful. Sometimes it's just interesting. And that is, I guess, why I cross genres so much, because I see that a good conversation isn't limited to one genre. A good plot point can be, all three of us could have the exact same plot point and we could write 5 different genres. We can start with the same sentence and go in 15 different directions in different genres with different characters and different settings. And so it's kind of, what are you in the mood to write today? What sounds exciting? Where are you located? Is it cold outside? Maybe you want to write something that's warm to make you internally feel a little bit better. Just whatever sparks, whatever feels really good. That's kind of what I go towards. I'm like always like kind of like seeking a high, but like a long-term high, because they, books take a while. So you just have to like lock into that. But as soon as you start getting bored, or like you banging your head against the wall, honestly, I drop a lot of manuscripts that way, because I'll look at it and I go, no, I'm fine. Maybe I turn that into a short story, or I took 50,000 words and turned it into a haiku.
Wow.
And that was that. That was it. I was like, okay, well, I didn't love it. But I saw one moment that was worth keeping, and that was it.
So as I was preparing for our conversation today, I was reading some of your short stories, and The Pageant in particular really was, and I will freely admit that I am not a short story person. I don't write them a lot, and I don't read them a lot. And I'm not 100% sure why I don't read them a lot, because when I do, I love them. And The Pageant was, I mean, gosh, it just like invoked so many instances of, you know, thinking about, you know, pageant moms and JonBenet Ramsey and just like all of these very like visceral experiences that I have seen. I've never been in a pageant myself, but that I have seen, and I like knew exactly like these two characters. Like they were so clear, and there was so much happening in such a short story that I was just like, wow, like this is masterful of how you are just like concocting these individuals that were definitely one of them I was rooting for. And I was like, yes, I felt really, I don't want to spoil it for our viewers because, you know, they have to read it to experience it, but like definitely made me question my morality because of who I was rooting for. And it was just like, it was so refreshing. And I would love to hear, especially since this short story is included in your collection, What's Underneath, which is the giveaway that you are so generously offering for one of our viewers today through for an ebook copy. Can you tell us where did that come from? Because I'm just like, this story, it was like an episode of Black Mirror. And I was like, how did this happen? How did this come from you?
Oh, that is a great question. That one in particular, let's see. I think that one came while I was sitting in a waiting room and I saw a clip of something about JonBenet, and I know a lot about her. And it was a fluff piece, and it was very wrong. It was just one of those like, oh my gosh, did you hear? And I was like, yeah. And that's not how the story goes, because you're telling a story and she's a human person who has an actual life, but that's okay. And that kind of the idea of not knowing and just making things up kind of sat with me. And then like years and years later, I was like, you know, I haven't written that kind of story yet. Maybe I should do that. And that's it. It's funny. A lot of my stories come from the most bizarre places. I've tried to I explain how to come up with story ideas. And honestly, I've given a full list. I wrote a list of, I think, 100 ways to come up with story ideas that I share with some of my writers that I've helped along the way. And I mean, it includes looking at the dirt on the ground for shapes, because I can't tell you what sparks the thing that day. I mean, it can be anything. It can be a clip of a conversation and something else, or it can just be that conversation. It can be 10 years of experience with one kind of person that just drives you insane, or it can be, a really great cup of tea. And somehow that makes you think of cyanide. I don't understand brains, is what I'm saying.
I'm thinking, it's like, I really couldn't tell. And I realized that was probably an unfair question of me to ask, because I'm not 100% sure that I could tell anybody specifically, when I met my characters, why, they waltzed in and decided to stick around. Because it's such a strange creative experience, because you have to have that connection in order to move forward with them. How many times have we tried to write something that we feel is this would be a great idea, but we just don't feel it enough to keep moving forward.
I call them sticky ideas. I like to let things simmer. I think about it like a good stew. Mm-hmm. You can get a really great idea or a really great character or a great setting or whatever, and you can jump in that day 100%. And some people will come up with a brilliant story. I am not one of those people. I am one of those people that will hit a wall and hopefully come up with a flash fiction at best. Or I can just let a thing drive me absolutely insane from anywhere from 6 weeks to 10 years, and just keep almost having an eye twitch because I wake up at 3 a.m. and I'm like, I hear you. You're still not ready. Please leave me alone. And then when I finally get to the place, I'm just like, this, and there's the story. I have a couple characters that I can specifically say I know where I met them. I know when I met them. Most of them are not that way, though.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to ask them, because this is such a fascinating topic to be able to be a part of here. So you have so many of these ideas, and you write so many different formats. When you get an idea, do you write it down someplace and just kind of because I would be afraid that if I didn't write it down, I would forget it, because I forget what I had for lunch 2 days ago. So how do you manage all of your ideas?
Well, there are some ideas that I absolutely do not write down, because I decide if it's good enough, it will stick. Because I'm like, well, that was interesting. We'll see. But then there are some ideas where they come fully formed. I had one yesterday. It was at least a short story. Characters, I had 2 characters. They both had full conversations, full scenes. The whole arc just came. I will not write this story for at least 2 years. It will not happen. However, I can see it. So I wrote probably 1,000 words of just a blob. I don't know what it will look like, how it will show up. 1,000 words may all turn, like I said, back into a haiku, but I got all of the words on the page, and there we go. But there are plenty of ideas that just sit, and they show back up or they don't. My husband and I are the kind of people that bounce ideas, make fake characters up, have fun banter. So, we're like, oh, I can't believe Sharon did that. We don't know what we're talking about. We're just being really silly. So is Sharon a character I will write about? Maybe. If we jokingly talk about this irritating woman named Sharon for 6 weeks, then yeah, Sharon might end up in my book, whether she's the killer or not. I don't know. We'll find out. But that's usually, I tried writing all of them down, and I actually wrote a collection, and I started with 100 stories, and I got down to 60.
Oh my gosh.
And I made miniatures for all of them. And then I realized that I still had another 50 outside of the other 50 that I deleted. So I'm having to make another second miniature collection. So I try only to write down the ones that are like absolutely screaming at me now.
Mm-hmm. I can definitely feel that, the people who keep coming back and like those ideas that stick with you. Like, I think that's a great way to, there are moments where, oh, I forgot. It must not have meant enough to me or I must not have had like deep enough connection with it to actually see it to the end. So I very much can I see that point of view, and I understand that point of view. I'm looking at our time. As I said, it was fly by. We've got about 10 minutes left already. So I want to make sure that we first say hello to our folks in the chat who have popped in and said good afternoon. We've got Farmhouse Reader, DHB, and Sir Reads a Lot typing into the chat. For our giveaway today, we are doing a ebook giveaway of What's Underneath, which is a collection of stories that that is about your Jane's Oregon. And we'll talk a little bit more about Jane's once we get the giveaway rolling. But Elizabeth, do you want to share what our magic word is that folks can type into the chat for the opportunity to win a ebook copy?
Yes, the magic word is Dahlia, which is the name of one of my favorite short stories from that miniature collection I mentioned, which has a bunch of short stories and miniatures in it. So it's Dahlia.
Perfect. So folks, go ahead and type Dahlia into the chat to enter into our giveaway for our episode today. Jane's Oregon. So the thing that I find so cool, and you had mentioned this when we were kind of chatting before the show went live, is that instead of writing one detective and setting this series that follows one person through, you've set it in this town. And so tell us about Jane's and maybe how Jane's came about, how, if it's a conglomeration or of places that you have visited in the past or where you've lived. Tell us about it.
Well, the series actually did completely start with a detective. I was convinced that I was going to love writing police procedurals, and I got 75% through one after having gone to the FBI Citizens Academy and the local Citizens Academy. And it turns out that I just love learning and absolutely hate writing police procedurals. Fun fact. So I was like, okay, well, but I love these stories. How can I make them not based on a detective? So I figured I would just write a ton of different stories, but I saw a beautiful town that I had made, and I have a map where it's I know exactly how many miles it is from one place to another. I have chains of restaurants, and I was like, okay, well, this is the place. This is where the stories take place. And that's it, right? The detectives will be the same. I have all of the detectives. I have a full command tree from the police detective, like the command chief, I have them all. And so sure, they'll show up, but I want to make the town a character. I want the crimes to be just crimes that happen in a town. Okay, sure, the murder rate is a little Murder, She Wrote, of course, but it is what it is. Well, it's maybe not as bad, but it's a city, so there's a bigger population. But it felt like a freer way to explore different genres, because they're not even the same genre. There's one that's psychological horror, and one that's domestic suspense, and one that's like a mystery, and one of the other ones that I'm working on is a psychological thriller, because each story can be an insular thing, and I'm just connecting them with this very rich place that I've created. It's actually, I drew on top of a place in Oregon, starting with the shape of Portland, then changing it to a place that is partially Mount St. Helen, and then around Mount St. Helen. And then I moved it down to this other, I made stuff up is what I'm saying. It's weird, and it's not, I don't think that a town can actually be like this, but it's fine. I just basically tried to make approximate shapes of what a town would look like. And I gave suburbs and everything so that it could, feel like a fully holistic town. And that way I could also have suburban crime and city crime and, crime in the boondocks or, that kind of thing. So it was more for me to play than anything, I think, at a certain point. I still have that police procedural waiting for me to, I guess, tear it apart. But, I wonder what it will be in the town. But yeah, it's fun. I think the freedom is something that I know a lot of people that I've talked to that write police procedurals kind of crave once they get to a certain number. I mean, it might be number 15 of their book series, but then they want to, maybe change book series. But I feel like in this way, I can write on this until I'm 75, or I can stop at any moment, because people aren't saying, oh my gosh, I wish I knew where so-and-so was in their relationship, because I've told you all you need to know. So
I think that's just such a unique concept for creating a world, and I haven't encountered that in the books that I've written. So I think it's a really cool concept that you've developed, where you have your town and everything is kind of growing and developing, but it's really the town that's taking us forward rather than a lead character. So I was like, wow, that's such a cool, and hearing your process for why you decided to do that is really fascinating.
Thank you.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, I don't know, the two of you, I don't know if you've heard of this guy who is, unfortunately, he's passed away. Some guy named Ray Bradbury wrote these stories called the Martian Chronicles. They were pretty decent, I think. But, Elle, what you're talking about, when you started talking, it's like, oh my God, that reminds me so much of the Martian Chronicles. So, about starting with the setting and then having these things happen within different things happening within that locale. So yeah, I just want to echo what Sarah says, that is such a cool idea. So tip of the hat to you.
Thank you. I feel like the, what is that show called? The White Lotus Hotel.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that is kind of the vibe as well.
Mhm.
And I'm like, yes, that's why I think I love the show so much. 'Cause I'm like, that's what I'm doing. Exactly.
And before we begin to wrap up our show, I do want to make sure that you get to share with us a little bit about your advocacy work that you do. If you feel free to share whatever you would like with us, we would love to know like what you're doing and, you know, calls to action, how we can help.
So yeah, I am a disability advocate, and being someone who can't, storm the gates and do the walks, I do it in my own way. Some of it is on my newsletter where I share, my truths and chronicle life as a disabled person, including healthcare system. It's kind of woven into life as a writer. So I've been told it's a unique perspective. So I love writing those essays. I've gotten some published about writing a disabled serial killer and that kind of thing, which I write crip fic. And that's a genre that's not really talked about. And actually, crip horror is not really a thing yet. I'm kind of leading the frontier. I'm trying to actually put together a whole anthology with a bunch of authors for it.
Oh, wow.
I also got Washington to declare May Ehlers-Danlos and hypermobility syndrome month because I have hypermobility, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So I kind of just try to find any small way to like make a splash because, that's on some days it's hard for me to open my eyes, nonetheless get out of bed. And I know, given how prolific my work is, it looks like I must be every day writing. I just happen to, on the days that I'm creative, be pretty quick about my writing. And so it pours out of me, and then I'll, have a bout of chronic fatigue and won't get out of bed for 3 weeks. So I try to, find my moments, and mostly I'm doing that in my fiction, and I'm just kind of asking for other people whatever they can do, whether that is, trying to get different months about whatever, there are lots of illnesses, whatever speaks to you,
Mm-hmm.
Bring it up. Social media has a lot of calls to action, just having conversations. And, one of the biggest things is the assumption that if someone doesn't look ill, that they must be making it up. Or when an able-bodied person rents a wheelchair or something, I have had some very negative experiences before I bought my own wheelchair. Just compassion would be a great start. Very easy, very simple, just empathy for people. You don't need to know if they have things. It's not really for you to know. If you see their cane, asking them why they have it is maybe not great. If they seem like they would like to share in a setting in which that seems appropriate, then you can listen. You can take that information and you can share what they like to give you. And I think that's great. But yeah, I think empathy is a great and easy and very free way to get started with your own personal advocacy.
That's a great, yes.
You're here.
Very much so. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I thank you. That's really what we all needed to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And for folks that do want to kind of learn more, you mentioned your newsletter and how you kind of share your journey. How can they get involved with that? How can they sign up, and how can they be a part of that?
So it's on my website, which is currently emitchellwrites.com. You can also just another Elizabeth at Substack. You can either remember that it is that, or you can just look up just another Elizabeth when you go to Substack. But it's on my website, and it should be very easy to find. There's not a lot of just another Elizabeths in the world. So yeah, but anywhere you find anything about me, you'll find my newsletter.
Fabulous. Perfect.
And feel free to also hit reply to my emails and ask me any questions. I am one of those people that is more than willing to share resources. And if you do have questions about disability, I am very open to answer them.
Nice. Is there anywhere on social media that folks can get in touch with you or follow you?
My newsletter. I actually do not do social media anymore. You will find me on social media, but
Okay.
I backed off of social media at the beginning of the year. It was one of those things I needed to drop for my physical health so that I could keep delivering books.
Okay. Okay. So, folks, the newsletter is the way to go.
Fabulous. And looking again, this has been just so enlightening and wonderful and fascinating. And so, Elizabeth, thank you for being here with us this afternoon. Real quick, we do have to pull our giveaway winner for today. And so we've already, would you like to share any new books that you have coming out, or new, what's on the horizon for you that folks should be bookmarking or adding to their TBR list while I'm pulling our giveaway winner?
So I am the editor, as well as I have 2 short stories in an anthology called Art-Born Words, which is a 31 story collection, and each story has an etching that it was inspired by, and it is beautiful. The Kickstarter is up right now, and it starts at the end of the month. So if you, again, go to my newsletter, you will find links to that. And you will also find links to the next project that I am publishing, which is another anthology called Claw Machine, which is basically 14 different authors all writing short, speculative, and dark fiction stories with claw machines. My next novel comes out a year from now, so you'll have to follow me to get more details on that.
Well, it sounds like there's plenty in the works for you that we have to
Always.
look forward to. And our giveaway winner for today's episode is user DHB. Congratulations.
All right. Woohoo!
DHB, if you can email giveaways at itsbookishtime.com, your email address that you would like me then to send on to Elizabeth, I will take care of that and get that forwarded on for you. Ed, you're very welcome. Thank you. So DHB says, thank you for the generous giveaway. We also have a comment from Comic Carnival saying, ironically, just another Elizabeth is unique. So I think, circling back to our conversation at the start, it's like, I love that. I just thought that was such a fun branding. So very looking forward to all that is coming up for you, either under Elizabeth, Elle, or Buffy. So it sounds like we'll have lots to look forward to. So
Absolutely.
Again, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here with us today. It was absolutely a delight to talk with you. Thank you for carving time out of your busy schedule to be here and for sharing a moment with us. We really, really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me. And thank you guys in the chats. I appreciate it.
Oh, yes. Our wonderful chat who was able to join us here live. Thank you for your comments. For those folks who are watching us after the fact, if you have anything to share, please feel free to comment on our video. Always make sure to like and subscribe so you get our updates for latest Bookish Moment episodes. We will be back tomorrow afternoon with Leslie Budowitz for a brand new book that she has coming out. It's going to be, I believe, historical short stories, which should be very interesting. So we'll get to chat with her, and make sure you can head to our website to sign up for alerts for new episodes. And have a good day. Until we see you again, everybody, stay bookish. Thanks for being here, everyone. Bye-bye.